hi everybody, it's Romania Black. This episode's 30 minutes. I have been bombarded by people through many comments asking me if I am watching the director's cut of episodes 21 through 26. And it just hit me that we're on episode 21. And I was like, yes. Anthony, dear sweet Anthony, fellow patron and patron saint of NGE Anthony, sent me these files right at the very start of my watching experience. I think episode 3 is when I started watching the files Anthony sent. And way back then, Anthony's like, okay, these are all the director's cuts. They're everything. It should be the primo watching experience. And I was like, thank you. So I was pretty excited about that. So this is the director's cut. It is 29 minutes, which is insane because I pull up the episode every week and it's just 23 minutes. I'm like, it's the same every week. And this week it's different and it's starting different too. There is a screen here and it's not the OP like we normally see. It just says a big 2000 in big giant letters. What am I about to get myself into? So for the record, just for my own sake of telling you all, I have had a horrible allergic reaction to an antibiotic and it has made my face swell up and my neck red. So if you're wondering why I look like that, it's bugging me a lot, but I can't help it. So there's that. But that's the reason for that. But I do have some comments before we dive into this from episodes 20 and 19 and 18. And so I haven't even gotten through all the comments for episode 20 yet. I haven't gotten through all the comments for episode 20. Most of the ones that I missed are probably going to be on episode 22 when we get to it. But I couldn't wait. I was like, I need to watch episode 21. I need to see it. So Nicholas Bunt talked about how we were talking about the condom being the condom wrapper in episode 20. And Nicholas Bunt was talking about how the city of Houston, Texas in the 90s actually did some promotional safe sex ads in light of the AIDS crisis. And I was like, wow, really? And yeah, they used Asuka and Shinji as the mascots. And I was like, no! But I guess it makes sense because Asuka and Shinji are teenagers and it was to try to help like safe teen sex. So even though Kaji and Masato are the more apt demonstrators for that type of ad, it makes sense they chose Asuka and Shinji. So I'm like, okay, makes sense. I can go with that, I guess. But I thought that was interesting that randomly Houston, Texas, of all places. Okay. Melania the Severed talked about introjection being incorporating characteristics of another person into your psyche subconsciously. And I was like, wow, that ties to the Evas and injecting someone into them and them subconsciously merging possibly with that person. No big deal. As a child, and my notes are absolutely horrible, as a child grows and adopts the personality traits of their parents, it can be a defense mechanism in kids without parents. So the child reassures themselves that some aspect of a parent is present, even if the parent is physically absent. Gendo. And it's like when Gendo says, don't run away, Shinji, he keeps telling himself, I must not run away. So whether Shinji is recognizing it or not, he is adapting that part of Gendo into his own psyche. And so it's like, yeah, even though since Gendo wasn't present, Shinji just goes back to these same personality traits over and over again. It's like, okay. So I thought that was interesting. So thank you, Melania, for explaining that. Eri talked about how Eri in the manga dies. Or no, Toji in the manga dies. And I was like, oh. So I don't want to be spoiled by the manga anymore. I read that and was like, okay, cool, he dies in the actual manga. That'll be fun to get to. I don't know if I'm going to react to the manga on here, but I am at least going to read it and talk about it. So regardless, I don't want any more manga spoilers. And Eri didn't know that because I hadn't said that on here before. But I don't want any manga spoilers. Someone asked after the fact, they're like, can I tell you something about the manga? And I'm like, no, just wait. I'm going to wait and read the manga afterwards. So we'll just leave it at that. But along the same veins, Chun Ting Kyo noted how Ano said he could not kill Toji in episode 18 because the producer of the show were afraid of children seeing other children being murdered. Don't worry about the rest of it, but we can't see a child death. I was like, oh, okay, we've seen some pretty disturbing stuff on this show, but Toji dying, that'd be too much for the kids. I was like, or at least the producers were against child murder. I'm like, well, I'm glad we draw the line somewhere. I'm glad we've drawn the line. Good to know. Pool 109 talked about how there is a 4-minute AMV called A Story That Repeats, Evangelion's Visual Poetry, and that I should watch it after End of Evangelion. Okay. I think that might be fun. After End of Evangelion, I might watch that. If End of Evangelion messes me up as much as I think it's going to mess me up, I might need a week off. So during that week off, I may watch that AMV and talk about it, or I may do something else. I don't know. Y'all keep telling me I'm going to need breaks. No, I've never heard of people that watch a reaction channel being like, whoa, slow down the content. You need to take a break. That concerns me. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I was like, okay. But cool. But thank you, Poll 109. I have noted it, and I will watch it and react to it eventually. Because it's only 4 minutes. I've had some people tell me I need to watch these like documentary style different things. I'm like, in my own time, I definitely want to do that. But one, I want to wait till the entire series is over. And two, most of them I want to watch on my own time because you'd be basically watching me go, like for 40 minutes. I'm not going to waste your time doing that. But it's good to know. John Smith talks about how Kajis talk about how we can't understand one another and women and men being different and as wide as an ocean is kind of ironic in the same episode in which we transport an Eva who's influenced and controlled by an angel across an ocean over here. It's like, oh! So that's pretty cool. I like the idea that in the same episode, Kaji talks about the distance between man and woman is as deep and wide as the ocean. We have an Eva coming across the ocean from America to Japan, and it gets infected by an angel. And there's no communication of that. Fun time. So thank you, John Smith. Tamiya. I thought this was really good, Tamiya, that you noted this. In episode 19, Kaji and Gendo's calm nature in the face of utter violence and death is creepy. Yeah. And I hadn't thought of Kaji in the same vein, but yeah, Kaji reacts the exact same way Gendo does. He's not fazed by it at all. Everybody else looks horrified. Kaji does not. And we really didn't get to see in episode 18 Kaji's reaction to Toji getting brutally assaulted. Didn't get to see that reaction, so I find that interesting. And how Tamiya talks about how human survival instincts don't exactly work that way. We naturally like cringe and like react to violence. To just stand there and watch it nonchalantly with no expression or emotion, kind of creepy indeed. And Kaji being one of them, like Gendo in that regard. So, Tamiya also noted that Gendo talked about repeating the process from step 108, which several of you noted as well, but it ties to a Buddhist connection to Japan, ringing the bells 108 times on New Year's. I feel like 108 has come up before in this series, and someone said the exact same thing. So, curious that we keep bringing it up, the 108 bell ringings on New Year's to kind of ward off evil, sort of thing, or it aligns with something with Buddhism that you all have mentioned in the past. So I thought that was interesting. EQ, you had a lot of awesome things in your comment. I was like, oh, and this is for episode 18. Episode 18 could also be tied to the theme of silence, in that Gendo cuts off many voices in that episode. Not only can Toji not be heard in this episode at all, but Shinji doesn't get to have a say in the end with not wanting to hurt Toji. And so Gendo kind of silences a lot of voices in that episode and takes matters into his own hands, which I thought was really good to note. Also, I debated why Ida wouldn't be considered as one of the EVA pilots, and EQ pointed out that Ida's parents work for NERV. So there's a lawsuit on their hands, It's not a liability with Shinji because his dad's running the show and he's okay with it all, but Ida's parents, if something happened, would probably file suit with NERV, and we just can't have that. We've established that Toji's great because his sister's in the hospital, his family doesn't really seem to be proactive about it. Perfect candidate. I'm like, Also, EQ noted how no one wants to shoulder the burden of stressing Shinji out by telling him that Toji is the pilot, which is ironic because them not telling Shinji does exactly that. It stresses him out in the end. And they just all kept quiet, again tying to that theme of silence. But also finally, EQ noted that there's a fusion of religion and science in the show, and that the lines start to blur, in which those who have a lot of faith suddenly start to look towards science for like a concrete anchor for that faith. And those that desire scientific explanations suddenly look to faith in something as being divine or a miracle when there's no logical explanation for it. So I thought that was a really cool dichotomy there in two sides of the same coin. You have faith and science, and when they reach their limits, they kind of turn towards the other. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Jimmy Russell noted how the Eva's attack how the Evas attack starting off in this series is how they are destroyed. And I was like, oh. So there's, in the first one, you have one firing a laser. It's destroyed by a laser. The one angel that when they meet Asuka, it attacks from the water. It's destroyed in the water. The one Eva that hacks into the Magi is killed by hacking in through the Magi. And then you have like just the one the angels themselves. I think the only one that I was trying to figure out would be different would be the black and white marble angel, because it like soaks Shinji in, and that's its attack, but then it's attacked like by Shinji coming out of it. So I think that might be the only exception. But for the most part, if you go back and look, most of the angels, how they attack in the series is how they end up being killed. And I'm like, oh, and even Toji as the 13th angel attacks like trying to choke out Shinji and then gets that flipped over and reversed. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Good to know. And then finally, Ironic Legacy talked about Hayflick and what did Hayflick mean? And it's apparently a biological term for how many times a cell can reproduce before it stops. And it's basically the lifespan of cells. So essentially when they said in the last episode about the whole Hayflick thing, they can't reproduce the parts that they need for the OO and O2 unit, so they're pretty much out of commission. How about that? Fancy that, right? Funny that. But yeah, the only other thing I wanted to note was that Matthew B said I need to put a trigger warning for episodes 21 through 26. Now, what that means, I don't know. I don't want spoilers, but I'm just throwing it out there. Apparently, there's a trigger warning. So, brace yourselves, lads. That's all I gotta say. I don't know what else that means, and I don't want to know because I don't want to be spoiled, but all I know is that we have a 30-minute episode. That's never happened with this show, and I'm a little worried. But we'll find out what that means, right? So let's just watch. Let's just watch. It's probably nothing big. Shinji is just, he just got ejected from this Eva unit that was trying to absorb his soul and body into it. Could be tied to his mom. Him and Rei may be tied together in some weird shape or form. Gendo's weird. What could happen? So let's find out, shall we? We're going to start episode 21 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. It's like they said, how much can we pack into one episode? Give you the back. This was the backstory of NERV. This whole episode was the backstory of NERV, how it started, an insight into Akagi's mother, who's a piece of work, and Yui, and everything's starting to click a little bit with the Evas. Okay, so this gave us a lot, but there's still how this episode manages to give you a lot of information, a lot of answers, and make you ask more questions. Because not only questions about the past, but questions about, there are gaps missing. There's gaps of information missing. And this episode, this whole series from episode 1 to now has been a big piece of Swiss cheese. And there's been little gaps and holes missing in the story. And as we've gone, the reason why I've been so adamant about people not spoiling me about the plot is because as we go through the series, I've noticed that it just fills in the gaps as we go. It does keep a few things ambiguous, but it fills in the gaps where if you were questioning something, it eventually will answer your question. And this episode answers a lot of questions I didn't know I had going into this. I was like, oh shit. As Whiteboard Coon's like, whoa, calm down, Romania. And so, but because of that, it's like it filled in a hole and it punched a new one. And I was like, okay, I didn't even know I wanted this question answered, but now I have this other question that goes with it. So for Whiteboard Coon's sake, because last episode, I think I flipped it over 3 times. I think we're gonna, how to break this down. There's gonna be a piece of information that we go through here. And then I feel like we're gonna have questions answered and questions unanswered. And also there's a timeline with NERV, right? This whole thing goes through a timeline and it keeps going back. So I feel like that's the place to start, is that we got the timeline. We'll go through that, right? And then as we go through the timeline here, we need to ask questions and things that we find out along the way. So we're going to make the timeline black and white. Seems legit. Let's do the stuff from the past in blue. Let's do the stuff from the past in blue, and then, or in dark blue, and then we'll do the stuff in the present in purple. We'll do that. Oh, for the very first 5 minutes of this, I was like, this series, it loves to do that thing. This series wants you to go back and rewatch. It begs you to go back and rewatch because it's like, oh, you think you're just going to sit through one sit through and that's it? And what if we have 5 conversations going at once? Now you have to go back, bitch. You have to go back and rewatch, otherwise you're not going to get all of it. I'm like, ugh. So I'm not going to start with 2000. We're going to go back to 1999. We're going to party like it's 1999 and Kyoto. So I'm going to put that over here. I'm going to put Kyoto 1999. There's a whole big old thing with that. Let me tell you. But let's do 2000 here. We'll do 2000 Antarctica. And do that on here. Okay. We're going to connect our timeline from there. Okay. There's a whole lot of shit going on in this. This discussion is going to be long. I can already tell. So yeah, 2000 Antarctica. Let's just start out for the base. So we got the table here. It looks like there's either lanterns or cups there. There's something there that says like number, and it looks like the thing in the middle there. Underground Base 2, August 15th, 2000. So let's just say August 15th. Okay. August 15th, 2000 at base number 2. So, interesting. So, questions that we have. How many bases were on Antarctica? And then we could say, obviously they found something there. Did they find Adam there? And they'd set up like a base there. Okay. So it was an underground base. So obviously this committee had formed some kind of underground base from the start there, and we're doing some kind of experiments. So they say, do you mean the super solenoid theory that Dr. Katsuragi proposed? Okay. So this is Misato's dad. So let's establish here that Dr. Katsuragi. All right, so Dr. Katsuragi had this super solenoid theory. Super solenoid theory. I can tell already that Whiteboard Coon is not going to make it through just one. This timeline's gonna get out of control. Okay. And so we have them saying, and there's multiple conversations going on at the same time. That theory is too radical. Okay. So it's nothing more than a hypothesis at this point. I say, but only the S2 theory can explain that giant's power. Okay. So the super solenoid is S2. Okay. So that is tied to S2 powering Adam. Okay, that makes sense. The S2 is the engine, the powering of Adam, okay? And it's the red dot on the screen there. Okay, so Katsuragi has a theory about the S2 engine. Makes sense. All right, and at the top here it says Mr. Ikari and his team are apparently leaving on the 11th. Okay, but this says August 15th. So are they saying like September 11th is when they were going to leave? Yikes. In that time? Okay. So, Mr. Ikari. So, Mr. Ikari was there and was set to leave on the 11th. The only thing that makes sense is September 11th because it's already August 15th. So, why would they say he was set to leave or leaving on the 11th if it's already past that date? So, that's the only thing that makes sense. That he was supposed to leave nearly a month later. But he doesn't. He leaves the day before. Okay. And so then we say, I wish they'd set up the smoking area a bit closer. Everybody's worried about being able to smoke. Fun times. We don't even need to measure it to know it's true. Okay. So apparently they're pretty sure about this whole S2 theory, that that's going to be, I heard there was talk of making the entire facility smoke-free. I love that they're just talking about this random stuff while all this other information is going on. It existed in our reality. Okay, you should be glad there's a smoke-free area. So we have no choice but to acknowledge it. Okay, so this S2, apparently it has been in existence. It was already existing. So they're like, well, it's already here, so we need to study it. So, okay. All right, we have to no choice but to acknowledge it. I'll accept it when all the data has been verified. Scientists put too much faith in their own ideas. Oh, that's interesting. We were just talking about the idea of science and faith being two sides of the same coin. That's really cool. Scientists put too much faith in their own ideas. Interesting that they think too much that their own ideas are going to work out and the hypotheses are going to be proven right. Interesting. I'll accept it when the data has been verified. So there are multiple voices happening at the same time. We have like a voice in purple, a voice in yellow, a voice in white, a voice in blue. We have 4 different people talking at the same time, which is interesting. Okay. And so from here, we say, what about the Spear of Longinus? Yes! I was like, when they talked about the spear, I was like, that's what they're going to get Adam with. Okay. So we mention that the Spear of Longinus is used, I'm assuming, to skewer Adam. Okay, so the Spear of Longinus. So when they went back to the South Pole 15 years later, it was to get that damn spear. Okay, good. They're a self-righteous kind. Okay, so there's this acknowledgement up here about scientists. About scientists being self-righteous. Which is interesting, because we could tie that to Dr. Katsuragi, if he's like gung-ho about this whole theory about the S2 engines. But we could also tie it to Gendo. We could tie it to Dr. Akagi, Ritsuko's mom. We tie it about them kind of believing that they have faith in their own ideas and being right. That's interesting. But yeah, all this stuff getting brought up. All right, they've become fixated too easily. Okay, I'll make note of that, because that's going to be important with Gendo later on. Fixated too easily. Okay, and they say the Spear of Longinus, it's been sitting there since it was shipped here last week from the Dead Sea. Okay, so they say that the Spear of Longinus is from the Dead Sea. Okay. All right. And then what else we got? They're incapable of accurately assessing reality. So they cannot, I'm going to put this, so fascinating. So cannot assess reality. Fascinating. This is all going to come back later on. Will it be treated before it's sent underground? It will be treated before it's sent underground, right? Won't it? And like they're going to make sure it's vetted and everything? They're the ones seeking to find the truth. Okay. And so they can't assess reality, but they are truth seekers. Okay. God, this episode, all right. Are we okay on that? The contact experiment with the donor. It's quite ironic. So they say that scientists being self-righteous and not being able to assess reality, but being the ones that are wanting to be truth seekers, that it's ironic that they're scientists and that they're having but they're also tied to faith, even though they're trying to tie something to reality, and faith is like something that's more abstract. It's interesting. But yeah, they say the contact experiment with the donor. Okay. So there's contact with a donor. So the question is, who is the donor? Was it Yui? We're not 100% sure on that yet, right? We're not 100% sure. Is scheduled for the 13th of next month. Okay. So they say that the experiment, the contact with the donor, is scheduled on the 13th. So they were scheduled it for the 13th of September, but Gendo was leaving the 11th. Okay. So Interesting. And that number 13. They are not so noble. We'll just make the adjustments in time. Okay. Discovery is joy and understanding is dominance. Oh, I like that. Okay. So put up here that discovery is joy. Understanding is dominance. Okay. Fascinating. All right. So, today's experiment is on the ego threshold signal of that field, wasn't it? Was it? Okay, so they're doing the ego threshold. Okay, the signal of that field. So they're doing today's experiment. Okay, so today's experiment was on the ego threshold signal of that field. Is the field they're talking about the AT field? Is that it? Is that what they're referring to? The ego threshold, though, makes me think of the experiment where they were trying to talk about the ego and like holding the boundary together. So were they trying to like insert someone into Adam and then test to see if they could get the ego to like anchor itself, kind of like what they tried to do with Shinji, but this is the part where it failed? Okay. I say all they seek is self-gratification. Okay. And then the camera angle changes. It's so weird, like the animation and everything. It's bizarre, but the camera angle changes. And there's suppress the surface radiation. It's over the projected limit. The DNA that was inserted into Adam is already physically fused. Okay, all staff get in your protective gear. Okay, so they inserted DNA and it physically fused. So the question is, how much DNA? Like are we talking like blood, like a little blood sample, or are we talking like an actual entire person? Like how much DNA are we talking about was physically fused? Was it just a sample or was it an entire being? It obviously wasn't Yui because she was able to have Shinji, but could it be part of her? I don't know. Okay, all workers level 2 evacuate. All AT fields are being released. Evacuate the upper area of Central Dogma. Ah, okay. So in Antarctica here, this was NERV 1.0. This was the original NERV. This is the original NERV in Antarctica, the one that got destroyed. But they were already talking about AT fields being released. So they AT fields released. But at this point they didn't have EVAs. So what were the AT fields? Were they just a signal? Was it did it come from Adam itself? Is that what they're talking about? And then the spear, pull the spear back. Oh, it's no good. We can't maintain a magnetic field. So the spear was stuck into Adam to contain him while they were inserting the DNA, and then it all went to hell. It like fused with him, and then they couldn't get it to stabilize, and so that was going to cause the explosion. Okay, it's sinking in. I don't care if it only makes a small difference. And we see it looks like a coat. It looks like a coat, and there's like a bloody part of it. Keep the damage to an absolute minimum. About that. The atomic components are breaking up in the quark level. Hurry. Okay, and then everything just gets knocked down. Begin thermal dampening treatment as soon as the chamber of guff opens. So, we got this chamber of guff. The guff? I'm like, what is that? So so they're basically trying to contain Adam and make it like an EVA and control it, right? Oh my gosh. And then it says it's begun to walk. Amazing. I don't care if it's only for 0.1 seconds. Get it to use up as much of its anti-AT field energy as possible. Okay. So, Adam apparently has anti-AT energy. Whatever that means. And it apparently got up and started walking, and they were amazed by it. Okay. And then the conversion system has already been set. And there said countdown commencing. It's spreading its wings. Ooh! Okay. It sounds like an Eva. Sounds like an Eva, right? It's breaking towards the surface. Oh, and then we see the hands. The hands come in. And then everything goes black. Oh, okay. Well, see, that only took 18 minutes. I thought it was going to take me half an hour to get through that first part. Yeah, okay, so, Okay, so basically, we're getting the idea of the second impact. It was, in fact, a man-made deal. NERV caused it. They were tampering with something that was beyond their limits. The question is, what is an angel or Adam in this case? I want to know, like, how did they find him? How did they locate Adam? What made them, like, go to the Antarctica? Why did they seek out this source? What was up with everything? It said they were trying to create a literal god, like a being of infinite power, right? Which essentially has happened now that Shinji's Eva absorbed the S2 engine from that angel. So, but interesting. And so then we get this top secret eyes only report of the United Nations Supreme Advisory Council. Viewing this document requires level 5 security clearance and permission of the United Nations Supreme Advisory Council. Contact with this document by those not in possession of these authorizations is punishable by life imprisonment at the discretion of the United Nations Security Council, regardless of whether the contents themselves have been examined. So we're getting into some top secret stuff here. Okay. And that's the first minute and 30 seconds of this entire episode. Oh my god. Okay. And then there's the intro. Why not? All right. So we cut back to the telephone. Hello, I'm not home right now. And it's Masato's message, right? Leave your message after the beep. And it's Kaji. And that's where he's leaving her the message before he goes to NERV. We bookended it with this. Oh my god, Kaji. So he's dead. But what happened to him? Why did he do it? Why did he say Fuyu-chan? What's going on? We don't know everything yet, and it's so frustrating. Okay. All right, so we're gonna cut over here to 2015 to the present time. And step 1 is that Kaji leaves the message at noon for Masato. But here's the thing, he left that message for her. I feel like he didn't want her to be home. He wanted to leave that message for her. He didn't want to talk to her again. Yeah, there he is. And the shot's gorgeous. Like the shot of the grass and everything surrounding him. And he's in the little phone booth. All by himself. Kaji. Ryoji Kaji. My last job. The red is as if it's the color of blood. All right, so Kaji on his last job. We'll talk about that. Like what? Oh. So then, episode 21, NERV is born. Okay. And so they established that the vice commander, old Fuyu-chan's been abducted 2 hours ago. So we go back in the past. He was last seen in District 8 on the west side. That's within our compound. What was your intelligence department doing? There's an insider who leaked information and investigated this. He was able to get the better of us. Someone who can pull the wool over the eyes of intelligence division too. It can't be. Ryoji Kaji is the man believed to be the mastermind behind this. All right, so Ryoji is suspected of kidnapping Fuyu-chan, but he didn't, right? So, okay, I'm gonna put over here out to the side here. So, here's the thing. Fuyu-chan was supposedly kidnapped by Kaji. And maybe Kaji did kidnap him, and then he went back to let him go to go get the information, and that's when Fuyu was like, you're gonna die. And he's like, I don't care. So these guys are the intelligence committee with NERV, right? And Misato, of course, is like, well, this is why I'm being detained, because I'm tied to him. And that's why you're here. And the one guy has his like hand in his suit jacket, like, you know, he's reaching for a gun to be like, don't try anything or we'll kill you. And she's like, gonna. Such a badass move, her pulling her gun out on the table and being like, fine. We appreciate your quick understanding. As a member of the same organization, it is regrettable we must suspect the chief of operations. She's like, but it's part of our job. And she's like, well, considering the history between me and him, then it seems like a logical step to take. Thank you for your cooperation. Yeah, I love that. She's got like the gun over the NERV card. Oh. Take her away. And so then Fuyu-chan is on the square, like by the Simon Says Council. And so it's been a while, Chairman Keel. This is quite a rude welcome. So I need not apologize for the impropriety. So Kaji kidnapped him. Okay, so supposedly, now the question is, did Kaji actually kidnap Fuyu-chan, or did he go to rescue him, knowing that he was going to get framed for doing it? So that's the question. The question is, did Kaji kidnap or just rescue him? Because yeah, Fuyu's later, he's like, you know you're gonna get caught and killed for this. And he's like, I need to know the truth. So, but regardless of whether Kaji took him to Seal or just rescued him from Seal or both, the fact is that he's taken to Seal. And it's led by Keel, who is listed as O1. Seal O1, sound only. Yeah, so you can't see their faces. They're so creepy. This is a necessary procedure in order to speak with you at leisure. He's like, you certainly haven't changed. But Fuyu-chan's pretty old, because he was pretty old back 15 years ago or 16 years ago. So, he's a kind of an older dude. Does my convenience mean nothing then? And then this one says, Seal 7, the problem being discussed is an urgent matter. It was unavoidable. Please understand. So, okay, I see 11. So it's Seal and not the committee. We have no intention of creating a new god. So there's 11 of them, right? So there is 11 of them. And they do not want a quote-unquote new god. We do not have any intention of creating a new god. So they don't want this Eva to have all this power. We would like your cooperation, Professor Futsuki. And then I love when he's like, he smiles at them calling him Professor Futsuki and remembers back to 1999 Kyoto. Dang. And he's like, oh, it's you two. He's like, you want to join us from beer in Kamigawa? So we don't get to see the people that he's talking to, although, you know, it'd be funny if it was like Ida and Toji's parents. It'd be funny if it was like Ida's parents was one of them, and he was like, hey, you want to get a drink? And we just don't see the rest of them. And the one guy that has the really tall, like, build, if that was actually Toji's dad or something, that'd be really funny. Ryoko and the others are saying they'll go if you go. Our professor is saying you should show up once in a while. Sure, all right. So, again, the details of this episode are gorgeous. Like, just the tiniest details, from like the toothpicks in the little container to like everything. Like, it's just, God, it's so good. But then basically, like, pre-second impact, where like it's good to go out and drink every so often. So they basically tell Fuyu-chan that he needs to be more social. He's like, you're really good at your work, but you don't take socializing seriously, and that's not good. So we get this idea that Fuyu is smart, but not social. And that's not good. And that's funny that they mention how him being not social isn't good, because it ties to kind of the entire point of this whole series so far, and talking about like interpersonal communication and how it's important that you talk to people and communicate and express your ideas and your thoughts and your feelings. And people in this series don't do that, and it leads to bad things happening. And so they kind of like chide him for it. They're like, you need to be more social and talkative. And it's like, And I feel like Fuyu has come a bit from this time to where he is now. By the way, Futsuki, there's a bioengineering student who submitted an interesting paper. It'd be funny if these guys that were in the Simon Says committee were the guys speaking to him, and like the guy with the mustache and the other teachers were the ones that are on the Simon Says committee. It'd be funny if it all worked out that way. But so we examined the idea that Yui Ikari, what a loop that threw me for, is a bioengineering student. Okay. She's a bioengineering student. Huh, how about that? That submitted an interesting paper named Ikari. Do you know her? And he's like, no, I don't. I told her about you and she said she was interested in meeting you. Okay. She'll probably contact you. This mustache man has set up fate. What? Okay. He's like, Ikari, all right. So metaphysical biology research room, number 1, Futsuki. So he is a metaphysical biology instructor. Okay. So Fuyu, I'm going to put up here. Metaphysical biology research professor. Fun times. Fun times. Okay. So he ends up meeting her, saying, I read your paper. And he's like, there's a couple questionable items, but it was pretty stimulating. She says, thank you very much. And she's like, yes, Yui Ikari, what are your plans for the future? Are you going to find work? Do you intend to join the research lab here? She says, I haven't thought that far ahead. Aren't you forgetting the third option? Oh, okay. So he told her, interesting. So I'm going to go back to that. When he goes back and asks her what she's going to do, he says, are you going to find, so the options are to find work, to research, okay? And then she says, have you considered the third option? When he asked her, like, are you going to find work somewhere else or work here? And she's like, well, I haven't thought that far ahead, but, there's a third option. And he's like, what would that be? A domestic life. Okay. Like becoming a mom. Okay. Of course, only if I can find someone nice. And Fuyu's like, what? And I like that, if I find someone nice. And he's like, the fudge? You're brilliant. Why would you do that? Back in the year 2015. And so they're like, with the S2 engine on board, Evangelion Unit 1 has become an absolute being. Okay, so back in the present time, we established that the S2 engine, quote unquote, completes Unit 01. So now it has the EVA units. Apparently before didn't have the S2 engines. So this it basically is one that now has it, and so it's a full being. We have no use for an actualized God. God, that's such a weird phrase. Isn't that the weirdest thing? Like, we have no use for an actualized God. Seal's like, we don't want an actual God. No. People don't need a real one. No. So, yeah, God, that's what a line. He's like, we must not create a God. We cannot allow that man to create a God. Okay, so yeah, they're like, no, God it's a construct. It's beyond the physical. It's something of faith. We don't need a real one, and we can't allow that man to create a God. Like, that's blasphemous. That's not possible. We can't do that. No. Gendo Ikari, is he a man that can be trusted? I don't think so. No, Gendo Ikari is so. What the hell? This episode. He's like Gendo Rukubungi. Gendo Ikari never existed. It's Gendo Rukubungi. Rokubungi. Oh my god. So yeah, no wonder he took her name. Rokubungi. I've heard of him. Okay, so he's known back in 1999. I've never met him, just heard of him. And in the police department, but there's always some rumor going around about him. And he's asked to be released into my custody. So, okay, so he had this reputation of being like a delinquent? Always in trouble? The fudge? Okay. And he's like tugging at he's got like the stubble. He's like, I've heard about you from a certain person. So I wanted to meet you. And for the record, Gendo looks very creepy. I'm just going to go ahead and say that I was not prepared for non-glasses Gendo, and I don't like it. His eyes are creepy because it's weird. They're the same color as Shinji's. Shinji is like a perfect mixture of his parents. He has the same eyebrow setting and eyes as his father and the hair and everything, but Gendo's features are too harsh and too rigid, and Yui's softens it just enough. Like Shinji has like the softness of Yui's features, but the same features as Gendo. So it's weird, but yeah, God. And him getting beat up. And Fuyu's just like, he's like, you're a rather coarse man to get into a drunken brawl. There was no time to talk. They just picked a fight with me. And he's got like his arm wrapped up. So yeah, so he got into a brawl. Interesting. I find it interesting because it reminds me a little bit of Shinji. Because it reminds me of Shinji and Toji from episode 3, right? Episode 3 or 4. Gendo getting in this brawl and saying there was no time to talk, they picked a fight with me, sounds like it's paralleling Toji and Ida picking a fight with Shinji way back in that episode. So, curious. And he's like, I'm not very good at being liked, but I'm used to being treated coldly. Oh! So Gendo, he's saying, I'm not liked, and I'm used to being treated coldly. Sounds a lot like Shinji. Sounds a lot like Shinji. He's not really well liked and he's used to being treated coldly. What the fudge? And Fuyu just walks away. He's like, well, it's none of my business anyway. Professor Fuyutsuki. And he even walks like, you seem to be exactly this person I expect you to be. Like, the way that he walks holding his hand, Gendo seems a lot like Shinji. A lot like him. Just older. My first impression of him was distaste. You know that shot reminds me of? That shot of Gendo with the slug and Fuyutsuki walking in front of them. I'm not going to write it on the board, but it reminds me of a comparison of Toji and Shinji. Because Toji was like, I have distaste for you. Wow, okay. I don't like seeing Gendo without the glasses. It looks creepy. Doesn't look right. Back then, the seasons of autumn still existed in this country. Okay. And he's like, are you serious? And she's like, I'm seeing Mr. Rokubungi. So, I love Fuyu's like, him? So, the question is, was Yui seeing Gendo before she met Fuyu-chan? Or did she start seeing him afterwards? Right? So that's the question. Was Yui with Gendo before Fuyu showed up? I want to say that they were. She says, I'm seeing him. And Fuyu's like, yeah, but it's weird because, okay, Yui kind of looks like Rei. A lot like Rei, actually. Yui looks a lot like Rei. So, I'm going to make note of this. That Yui looks like Ray. Okay. Like, yeah, she looks like Ray. All right. And so he's like, when I heard that, I wasn't able to hide my surprise. Like, I wouldn't picture a young girl like you. He's like, I never thought you would share your time with him. Like, that's like the worst thing you could say. Not like, I never thought you'd date him. Be like, I never thought you'd be caught dead in the same room with him. But then she says, oh, but Professor Fuyutsuki, he's quite a sweet person. Gendo and the word sweet are two words I never thought would be together in the same sentence. But maybe he was. Maybe he was different around her. She brought out the best in him. It's that classic ship dynamic. I mean, I can't say that I am not all for the ship dynamic of the cold, distant, brooding character that nobody likes and finding the sweet, angelic character that brings out the best in them. Who am I to judge? Because I love that ship dynamic, but I just never thought of Gendo being in that. But maybe she brought out the best in him and he loved her for it. It seems like he did love her. And we get that impression very much in this episode for lots of different reasons. But I'm just floored. I'm like, wow, okay. A sweet person. It's just that no one knows it. And he's like, maybe it's more blissful not to know. So yeah, but Yui says, she says that Gendo is sweet, but you just don't know it. And that ties to Ray. And the inner Shinji when he's in the Eva, which is why we'll talk about this. I think that Yui is in that Eva. That way back when, I feel like that the Eva telling Shinji, the inner Shinji and the Eva kept saying, you've never tried to understand your father. You've never tried to understand him. You've never physically reached out and tried to understand him, right? So that instantly when she said, it's just, no one knows it. It's that no one tries to understand Gendo, but she does. So maybe that's part of, if Shinji's mom is inside of that Eva unit, maybe she's trying to tell Shinji, be like, no, I know how Gendo really is. He's really not a bad person. You just have to know him. Maybe that's what the Eva's trying to tell Shinji, be like, you just need to know your dad, get to know him. He's not how he seems to be. And it's like, But Fuyu-chan's like, I don't want to know this. And she's like, did I inconvenience you by introducing you to him? Okay, so she was dating him before. So she was dating Gendo, yeah, she was with him because she introduced him to them after she met Fuyu. Okay, yeah. He's like, no, I'll admit he's an interesting man, though I can't get to like him. God, and that cold face. But within our circle, the common opinion that he had approached Yui for her talent and for the organization backing her. Okay, so the question then becomes... The question is, was Gendo using Yui? So that it becomes twisted there, right? There becomes that little twist, right? It can't just be that Gendo and her fell in love and that they loved each other. Can't just be that. No, that's not thinkable. But what if Gendo knew how talented she was as a bioengineer, knew that she had a good organization backing her in her research, and was getting close to her so that he could gain access to that? That's the spin, right? It's not that they were in love. There has to be an ulterior motive, right? Later, I would hear rumors that this organization was called SEAL. So, the plot thickens that Yui, she works and is backed by SEAL. Oh, fun times. Yep. That seems legit. Okay. And there's that thing. And then we go back to Antarctica. The second impact. The tragedy occurred in the final year of the 20th century. And I love this part where he says, and the first year of the 21st century was pure hell. That's all we need to say. They talk about 2001. It was pure hell. And I love this line where Fuyu-chan's narrating, and he says, there is no other word to describe that year. And that's all you get. That's all we get. That's all we get of 2001. That's all we need. Because, yeah, the year after millions of people died, it's an apocalyptic disaster, it's just hell. To be fair, 2001 was a pretty shitty year. So not off the mark. Not far off the mark. Mm-mm. And then 2002. 2002, the ruins of Toyohashi City at the Aichi Prefecture. So we go to 2002, which is a year later, and we go to Toyohashi, which I feel has been mentioned before, and I have a feeling I'm going to need to get new markers before I go into episode 22. But yeah, so we go back, and there's just like, the city is barely above water, like the skyscrapers, some of them are above water. There's boats and docks, there's some freighters, some ships and everything, whatever can float. And it's like the city, I love the idea that the city in its sinking has become the boats and everything made into houses, like, and they're anchored to that giant ship. So there's a giant ship there as the big main barge. And then there's ropes and stuff leading off to ships that lead off to ships, and there's like a makeshift dock around it. So it's like like a makeshift city in the midst of all this water. And the temperatures will rise above 30 degrees Celsius. And there's like tomatoes and stuff growing in that one boat. It certainly is hot over here. Because yeah, they're like, we don't have seasons anymore. It's just always summer because the second impact raised the heat so much. It's just always hot. And Fuyu's in there being like, it's rare. It's like the summer's lasted for almost a year now. Like it's just constantly summer. And so we get a peek into Fuyu's office. And I kind of love this because of how just like gritty and detailed it is. Like he has like his ashtray. He's got his clothes hanging up. He's got like his radio. He's got his equipment and everything. He's writing his notes down. He's got all of his medicine and gear. Like everything that is in the basin. And there's some guy in a suit behind him. And then he's like, it's rough on the body. You don't want to move to that ship up there. And so we see all of his equipment here. And there's just stuff everywhere. He's like, you mean the next town over? That place constantly stinks of oil. So I love that they call it the town where the ship is, right? And there's all this equipment. He's like, no, it stinks over there. I just can't get to like it. And then he has like the medical charts there. But still, I never imagined you'd set up shop in such a place. I had a lot of trouble finding you. He's like, they're short on doctors here like everywhere else. So yeah, that makes sense. They're like, a lot of their population died. So it's like, and people are probably getting injured and so all the time, and all their resources have been wiped out. So it's kind of like a state of panic and emergency. And so Fuyu is just playing doctor. He's like, well, I did medical physical biology, so I know enough about anatomy. I'm smart. I could kind of be a doctor, I guess. But like the knife, like the sips and stuff he has are in like the bloody water basin. He's like, it's a mockery, but it's better than nothing. He's like, I know I'm not a doctor, but he's like, it's the best these people have, so it's all I can do. Oh my gosh. And then this guy that's clearly with what will become NERV, he says, going to Antarctica at this late date? It's a formal investigation of the incident commissioned by the UN Council. All right, it's a provisional organization. But I think you could be of more use to the world there than working as an unlicensed doctor here. Professor Fuyutsuki. He's like, that's former professor. My column's blank who recommended me. And then it was Gendo. So Gendo lured him back in the fold. So Gendo went and had him found so he could come back and work for them. Probably at Yui's request too. Interesting. So they lured him in. They lured him into the fold. That same year. So they go back to Antarctica, back to the waters to think this was a continent of ice. There's no trace of it left. Not used to Gendo with the creepy look. No, I'm keeping track of Gendo's expressions throughout this because there is a turning point. We'll get to him. But it's so weird because even here, before Yui dies, like Gendo has like some hope. He's got the bags under his eyes. He looks harsh, but he doesn't have the glasses on. He's not doing the weird pose. He seems rather okay, which is creepy. I'm not used to that with Gendo. Him seeming okay. And he's like, I'm surprised you survived. Yeah, I heard you were a member of the Katsuki research team. So yeah, so Gendo, of course. So Gendo was on the research team with Dr. Katsuragi. So yeah, let's be real. They were doing this experiments and stuff before they met Fuyu-chan while Yui was a student. Like, this goes back before 1999. It definitely does. Luckily, I returned to Japan the day before the incident. Funny that. I was able to escape the tragedy. Funny that. He's like, He's like, Rokubungi. He's like, oh, excuse me, I have a different name now. And then he's just like, oh, a postcard? Not a business card? What? That angel looks like Ray! What the fudge? The angel with the heart has little blue hair, looks like Ray. Huh. It's like he meant to say, it's been a long time. Are you doing well? We're married, Gendo and Yui Ikari. The little child that looks like an angel and has a red heart in the center like an S2 engine and has the hair like Ray. What? Excuse me? Excuse me? I'm sorry, what? So yeah, I'm just going to point that out there. Don't worry. And he's like, Gendo Ikari. My wife has been nagging me to get this to you, Professor Fusky. He looks freaking creepy there, too. I don't like Gendo with those eyes. I don't like him with those creepy eyes. I don't like how he looks. Nope. She seems to be a fan of yours. And Fuyu's like, the fudge? Yeah, I don't like creepy Gendo. I'm not a fan. I don't know how to think about it. It's like, she seems to really like you. And he's like, I'm honored. And then what does that last line say? We don't get that translated. How is Yui doing? We don't get that last line translated. I don't like it. And then, isn't she participating in this expedition? He's like, well, Yui wanted to come, but we have a child now, so. Oh, and his face looks actually soft there. His face looks really soft. We have a child now. He looks like he actually cares. And I'm like, damn it, Gendo. What is happening? What is this? And yeah. And so they're like, safety first. So he's like, your organization, SEAL, was it? I've heard nothing but bad things about it. I can't approve of forcibly pinning down the board of directors. So they established that SEAL, I'm going to write with this marker, that SEAL has a bad reputation. Okay. I can't approve of forcibly pinning down the board of directors. It says, you're as fastidious as ever. No clean organization can survive in this day and age anymore. Okay, so Gendo says that to survive, you have to be dirty. It's just so weird because it's like there's still that shadiness of Gendo, but there's like a layer of kindness over it and a layer of there's a layer of humanity over him at this point because he has Yui and he has a son and he seems invested in both of them. And so Gendo is still shady, still doing shady shit with Adam and all this business, but there's like a layer of humanity over him that seems like it still tethers him to that is not present in current Gendo. And there's a distinct point in this episode where that humanity dies. And it dies with Yui. And so it's just fascinating to see him like this. And so Fuyu's like, well, the official investigation of the second impact, if the investigation team consists only of SEAL people, then you would run into all sorts of issues later. We're just a makeshift solution to avoid that, aren't we? So he's like, well, we can't just have the investigation be SEAL people because that would seem a bit biased, right? So we're expanding it, right? And God, Gendo. Yeah, the way that he just looks there. It's just, again, all the Gendo expressions. I'm obsessed. And Fuyu's just like, fudge. And so we go back to the present. NERV headquarters, isolation facility 4. God is in his heaven, all rights with the world. Mm-hmm. So that line there, God is in his heaven, means he's not on earth, which ties to the fact that they don't want a created God. They're like, no, God needs to be separate from the earth. He needs to be in heaven, away from the earth. There needs to be distance there, and then everything will be fine. He doesn't need to be on earth. No, we don't need that. No. Don't need that. So, She's like, I still don't handle dark places very well. The bad memories come flooding back. And then we cut to Masato like that, to seeing her like traumatized in the facility. So Masato was the sole survivor of the impact. And that was Masato. And she has not spoken in 2 years. She's just been silent, traumatized, right? And even her eyes look red, which is crazy. They look like a different color almost. And so they have like toys in there with her, and they're like, Masato Katsuragi. And she's on the ship, and they're like, oh, she's Dr. Katsuragi's daughter. She hasn't spoken for almost 2 years now. That's terrible. It attests to the hell that she witnessed. Her physical injuries have healed, but her psychological wounds do not heal so easily. And he's like, I suppose so. So the question is, what got Masato to speak again? That's the big question we don't get an answer to in this episode. So we can't conclude our findings for our investigation lightly. Okay, so a completely localized change to the atmospheric elements, the thorough extermination of all life, including microorganisms. So everything. The traces of an enormous cavern directly below the blast center. Okay, so we have subterranean scan of the Arctic, Neurotino radar imaging, codename White Moon. Ooh. All right. And the date was 9/12/2000 AD. Okay, so it did happen. They were going to make contact with the donor on the 13th. Gendo left the 11th. This happened before the contact. So, possibly created at the time of giant impact, surface structure clearly artificial. Okay, so we can establish that there was like a nerve center, kind of like Tokyo 3 in Antarctica. There was a center there too, and that the impact didn't happen on 8/15. It happened on 9/12. Okay? Which was the day before they were supposed to make contact with the donor. So the question with that is, why didn't the second impact happen on the 13th when the contact was made? So it seems like there's still some mystery here, but there's stuff that's being left out. But it's curious that Gendo left on the 11th and this impact happened the 12th. It would make sense if it happened the 13th when the contact with the donor was made. But why did it happen the 12th? Why did it happen the day before? That part is questionable. So, Okay. And this giant flash of light. I want to go back to what that paper says. The summary. Okay, so report concerned phenomena known as second impact, compiled from the surviving records of the Katsuragi expedition. I'm going to read this because it's in English. So all right. It's either been translated to like summary. In 1999, a group comprised primarily of, on Daikon 3, the 20th Japan SF convention, the biggest attraction at this event was a feature was produced completely independent convention, running some 5 minutes. Something finished. The production staff centered around knowledge, however small, of anime product, garage kits, and t-shirts made for building the core member specialty shop in Momodani, Osaka. It was fiction-related merchandise. Oh, is this all just bullshit? Is this just bullshit to fill the page up? Katsuragi Expedition, along with managing general products in 1983 when Japan SF Convention produced an opening animation feature. It was independent production running something professional in quality. These abilities found their way into the amateur filmmaking arena as well in the form of Daikon, various tokusatsu live-action FX features between 1982 and 1985. This group would produce Aiko Kunutsi, Dai Nippon, Patriotic Task Force, Great Japan. These are lists of different films. Oh my god. The Wings of Hanamis, who was 24 at the time. The film variable was found in December of 1984. Oh, this is just film information. Damn it. I thought I was going to get some Easter egg, but no. Anna was like, screw you, you don't get anything. That's great. So yeah, but there's a picture of Adam who has the arm, and has a hole inside of it, and has something that looks like the Eva. Interesting. Okay. It doesn't quite look like the Adam that's underground, though. This incident is full of mysteries. Yes, Fuyu-chan! Full of mysteries! Yes, indeed! Yep. So then, United Nations moves headquarters to Japan in 5 years. Candidate is New Tokyo 2. Second impact caused by massive meteor. Impossible to predict or avoid. Probability of once in every several 100 million years. Official United Nations statement at 20 to 30% of the speed of light. So the UN headquarters is going to move to Japan in 5 years. So in 2007, which would be 8 years before the present time. Okay, cool. Put that down. So we're going to make a note that in 2007, the UN was going to move to Japan. HQ. How about that, huh? How about that? All right. So they released a statement that was caused by a meteor to tell the public so that they wouldn't know about the whole thing. But from where I stood, I could see... Okay, and we see Fuyu. And we see Gendo. That the information had been blatantly massaged. Behind all this was Seal. And hints that a man named Keel was involved. Wow, okay. All right. So Seal and Keel, and it made me want to learn the dark truth of the incident. Okay, so we have established that Seal... We have Seal, we have Keel, we have Gendo, and we have Yui, and we have Katsuragi are all tied to the second impact. We just don't know the full scope of them first encountering Adam. We don't know the truth about all that. Okay. So 2003, even if that might eventually lead me to the name of Yui Ikari. All right. So then we cut to 2003. I'm going to put 2003 here at the UN Artificial Evolution Laboratory. That doesn't sound sketch at all. UN Artificial Evolution Lab. Wow. Okay. So this is a year before she died. And him walking across the facilities. And then he sees Yui. It's been a long time. Yes, it has. And she looks like Shinji there. See, there's times where Shinji, there's times where she looks like Rei, and there's times where Shinji looks like her, and then there's times where Shinji looks like Gendo. It's interesting. But he walks past her. Fuyu-chan walks past her and doesn't say a word, right? He looks disgruntled. He looks mildly disturbed walking past her. So does he know what's going to happen to her? Has Gendo told him about the experiments and he knows that she's on board with it? And he knows what's going to happen? She doesn't seem to mind. Interesting. Director's Office, UN Artificial Chief of Research, do not... And so, yeah, the Chief of Research. Wow. And then Gendo. Wow. And he has the Gendo pose. So, man, the first pose we see, so Gendo is the Chief of Research. So, the fudge. The fudge, y'all. Okay. Why do you hide the existence of the Giant of Light? Oh, you guys knew about the second impact, didn't you? That it would happen on that day. Even when he's doing his dark pose, though, even when he's doing the manipulative pose, there's still some humanity left in him. There's still some there, right? It's still there, right? And so also, you said you were lucky enough to get out the day before. So they're in the research branch here, right? The way this shot is composed, there is some distance between Gendo and Fuyu-chan, but it's not a lot. It's not like normally when there's like a mountain of area between them. They're fairly close, but I like that the pillar makes a sharp divide between the two of them. It's visually very effective. Okay? So he's like, well, it's funny you got out the day before everything went down. And what did he put there? What did he just do? He just activated something. He says, destruct negative. Oh, so did he just activate like a bomb? Was it also luck that you took all your research with you? Or did he pull out the files? Okay. So, yeah. I'm surprised his material escaped destruction. So Fuyu suspected him of being involved in this. I did a thorough investigation of your assets. I'm sure raising a child is expensive, but isn't the amount rather large for you to have privately? Oh, so he's like, you funnel in a lot of money for yourself. You know, I don't think it's just for raising a kid. Funny that. So Fuyu had been investigating him, which is interesting. And he's like, you impressed me, Professor Fuyu-chan. And that look, why not transfer to the Department of Economics? I'm going to go public about Seal and the Dead Sea Scrolls being secretly behind the second impact. I have no intention of letting the people who caused it get away with it. So, Fuyu, I'm going to put this over here. Okay. So Fuyu was going to turn Gendo in. And Gendo's like, feel free. It seems like Fuyu-chan was doing the same thing that Kaji was doing. He's like, he investigated Gendo just like Kaji was doing. He found all this information just like Kaji did. And he was going to go turn it in like Kaji supposedly was. And then Gendo says, well, go ahead. He says, go ahead. But before you do, there's something I would like to show you. And they go down. He's like, we're going down quite a ways. He's like, does it worry you? He says, somewhat. Like descending into hell, right? And he's like, what is it? It's a cavern left behind by someone who was not us. He's like, a cavern left behind by someone. Who knows? But that's where they're going to build Tokyo 3. And Fuyu is like, though 89% of it is buried. An underground cavern that was originally a neat spherical shape. Is this the same as the underground cavern found at the South Pole? He's like, the data from them are virtually identical. So yeah, so apparently, interesting, there's two, so there's identical caverns, right? Which is interesting. And Fuyu, he kind of gets mad at this. He's like, well, did you intend to repeat the tragedy once again? Like, whatever happened the first time around with the second impact, are you planning on repeating it again? And Gendo stares and he's like, is that what you're doing? And he says, whether we are or not, please determine that for yourself. The way that Gendo looks up the way that he's looking down, he's determined, the way he looks up, and it's like he's like, determine that for yourself, whether we are or not. Like, whatever our motives are, that's for you to decide. That looking up reminds me of Shinji in episode 19 when Shinji decides to fight back and he's like, no, I'm going to do this. It's the same pose, the same expression. Oh. But whatever Fuyu saw, he's like, all the resources mankind has to offer are being poured into that facility. And whatever he shows him, it convinces Fuyu not to go public. It's amazing. It's like Gendo offers the apple to Fuyu-chan and Fuyu-chan's like, okay, I'll take it. But then we meet Dr. Akagi stuck in this little room. And I like that Gendo looks at Fuyu-chan the whole time. Like, but Fuyu-chan knows her. She's like, oh, Professor Fuyu-chan. And he's like, Akagi, you too. She's been brought into the fold. This is the best place to research. The fundamental theories for the biocomputers of the future. So, Fuyu, it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon up in here. Fuyu knows Akagi. And she is doing biocomputer work. Theorizing for it. Interesting. Okay. All right. And he's like, I see. I intend to name it Magi. And he's like, Magi, after the 3 wise men from the east. Is that what you wanted to show me? And then we see Ritsuko. Yeah, and she was redhead too. And he's like, Ritsuko, I'll be right back. She wasn't blonde. She was a redhead. Who knew? Interesting. Okay. She was a redhead. And so then, okay, but he looks here. What is this? Camera 1. And Fuyu's like, the hell? What is this? And we see it's the OO unit. And it has, the OO unit has the net, like the vertebrae and everything coming out of it. And it has like the hands and everything and all the gear and stuff coming out of it. Oh my gosh. Is that the giant? Here at Gearhirn, we call it Adam. But this is not it. Okay. So we also established that this place that they're at is called Gearhirn, which I'm sure has a meaning. You know what? While I don't think that'll be much of a spoiler if we look up Gearhirn. Can we look that up? Is that possible? Can we look up that? Okay, in English. I just want to look up in English. Brain! Oh! Gehirn is brain in German. Oh, okay. So it's Gehirn is literally the brain. And then the nerve. So we went from the brain to the nerves. Oh, classy. All right, good on you. But yeah, so there's still a spinal column and everything. He's like, but this is not Adam. This is not the angel that we fought. It's not the original. And Fuyu's like, then, yes, it's an Eva made from Adam by man. Okay. And they're like silhouetting that big thing of light. Akagi and Gendo. So we established that the OO unit, it's exactly like Eve. It's an Eva made from Adam, but by man. So it's a man-made creation. Okay. So it's not the original. It's just made from Adam. So made from a sample of him. He's like an Eva. It's like, this is the Adam Revival Project as Project E. This is our mock-up, Eva Unit 00. A prototype for a god. I don't like where this is headed. Nope. So yeah, it's Adam Revival Project or Project E. So whatever Adam was, they want to bring him back. They want to revive this supposed god. Okay. He's like, Fuyu-tsuki, work with me to create a new era in the history of mankind. It was too tempting. It was too tempting. They're fixated too easily. And cannot assess the reality and are truth seekers. I like the idea that, yeah, Gendo and Akagi, they become obsessed. And Fuyu-tsuki gets caught up in it too. To the point where they can't get out. So episode 21, he was aware that he was still a child. We have the birth of NERV, and then he was aware he was still a child. That's going to tie to Shinji at the very end, which we'll talk about that. But then we go back to Ritsuko. I feel like I need to call Ritsuko now instead of Akagi because it's her mom. But she's dyed her hair blonde. She's no longer a redhead in 2015. And she's like, oh yeah, let's retest Ray. As she's staring at the O1 unit. I haven't seen Mitz Katsuragi around today. You're right. And so then we come back to when they first met each other, which her hair is practically the same, and so is Masato's. So, okay. Interesting. And she's like, oh, right, Mitsudo Katsuragi, nice to meet you. 2005. Okay, so I feel like I should have put 2007. I'm going to put 2005 here. And then we'll cut to 2007 over here. So over here is Misato meeting Ritsuko. So they've known each other for a decade. They've known each other for 10 years. And they met at Tokyo 2 in the Nagano prefecture. She's like, Mother, I met a girl named Katsuragi the other day. And so it's at Tokyo University, the second Tokyo University. Other people only look at me from afar. And each time I'm reminded the weight your name carries. But this girl has no reservation towards me for some reason. So basically Ritsuko did not have many friends because of her mother's reputation. Her mom was this well-known scientist, and everybody kind of backed off from her because they thought that she was intimidating. But Misato, like, instantly wanted to become friends with her. She's like, oh, let's become friends and talk all the time. And she's like, I didn't understand it. I'm told she's the sole survivor of that expedition. She was apparently aphasic for a time, which means she didn't talk, but now she chatters away a mile a minute as if to make up for lost time. Yeah, so she finally gained her voice back and just was a chatterbox. It's like if you've not talked for 2 years, suddenly it all just comes flooding out, right? Because she's a teenager at this point, right? So, you know, she just wants to talk and communicate. And she seems so... Richan, I'm still burrowed underground the same as always. So this is interesting. You have them talking back and forth, her mom and Ritsuko. And Dr. Akagi, the mom, talks about basically being trapped at NERV. That her work is never done and she's trapped there, the same as always. I've grown tired of the lunches that they provide. She's like, it's the same. On the surface, they've apparently begun working on the plans for New Tokyo 3 in accordance with the second capital transfer project. And so she's like, well, lately Masato's not been showing up. And when I finally got to tell me why, it was so idiotic. It's because she has a boyfriend. She's been sleeping with her boyfriend at her apartment for an entire week. I feel I've seen an unexpected side of her. So yeah, so Ritsuko is being like, oh, okay, so there's this side of her that's with Kaji that she's like, oh, I don't know, I don't like this. So the side of her that, like, you know, says, she introduced him to me today. He's good looking, but I just cannot get him to get to like his frivolous attitude. Oh, Kaji, honey. And there they are. The three of them. But he has this necklace, right? He has this necklace around his neck, okay? And it looks like it's the cross, though, right? It looks like the necklace that he has is the cross. Because it just, you can see the top of it peeking out of his shirt. So did he give the cross necklace to her? And then the mom says, you've never been good around boys. And Ritsuko says, in the end, being only raised by a woman. I'm sorry I've left you to your own devices for so long. It's awful for me to act like a mother when it's convenient. So that part of her, like we talked about way back in episode 13, where Ritsuko's mom is like, I really, the part of her that is the least, the part, definitely when she's choking Ray, the part of her that is the least on the surface is the mother. She's like, I'm the worst at being a mom. I'm not good at being a woman. I'm really only good at being a scientist. And Ritsuko laments that she's like, I'm not really good at being a woman either. I'm not really good at being a mom. She's like, I have no intention of being a mom. When she's lamenting that she doesn't understand why Masato's with Kaji, she's like, I don't understand that ways of a woman in that regard. She's a scientist just like her mom. She's like a mother. And so the question is, did she want a kid with Gendo? Maybe. So Hakeone, the lakefront. So we get this scene, okay? And we go back to 2003, which was the year before Yui died. And we get Fuyu-chan under the tree with her. He's like, today is just like every other day. The disappearance of autumn from this country is truly sad. But yeah, so the secret Dead Sea Scrolls that Seal possesses. If things happen as it is written within the scroll, the third impact will happen in another decade or so without fail. Okay, so they found, so the Dead Sea Scrolls. All right, the Dead Sea Scrolls predicted a third impact in 2015. So everything leading up to this series, and I love that they just nonchalantly say it under a tree with Fuyu-chan and Yui talking with baby Shinji, just casually bring up like this important, incredibly important piece of exposition. They just talk about it like it's just they're eating sundaes, being like, yeah, so this is gonna happen. So they've known for the last 12 years, or even before then, that the third impact was going to happen in 2015. So all these angel attacks, that's what it is. The angel attacks have all been predicted by the Dead Sea Scrolls. And Gendo is trying to alter fate. He's trying to alter reality. He's trying to change the future so that that doesn't happen. Okay, so he's trying to change the future so that that reality will not exist. Okay. That adds another layer to Gendo. I still don't like Gendo, but this episode is adding so many layers to his character that I'm like, oh my god, okay. So yeah, so Gendo and Yui and them have known that the third impact was coming by 2015 and that the angels were going to attack again. They've known this was going to happen, and so they've been actively working to do this project to keep that from happening. The organizations are meant to prevent the final tragedy. Yeah, so NERV and all them are designed, they're trying to prevent that from happening. Okay. And so this is what Seal and Gehern are for. I support your ideals, not Seal's. So he's like, I support your ideals, Yui, what you're thinking. I don't support Seal and what they're doing. Interesting. Okay. And she says, Professor Fuyutsuki, it will be very dangerous to unleash that seal upon the world. Also, the little chair that baby Shinji is in is striped, just like the striped shirt that he's wearing in his subconscious. It'll be very dangerous to unleash that upon the world. I have already handed the data over to Ikari. It's not something that can be accomplished by an individual after all. I think that the camera angle is interesting in this because there's a part of me that like, did Fuyu-chan like Yui like more than just a fellow student or fellow researcher? Because like the angle that we see her in, it's like her breast is exposed there, like you see part of her bra, and like the skirt she has is really short, and like the angle, there's a very male gaze to it in that moment where he's like looking at her, and there's just the gaze of it is hints at like a sexuality there, and so part of me wonders, I'm like, did he like her? Did he? Because he lingers on that shot. The shot lingers on her body there, and then it cuts back to him looking at her without saying anything. So it makes me think, like, did our Fuyu-chan like Yui more than he's letting on? And then you see Shinji grabbing at her breast too, which kind of goes back to the last episode, the whole oral stage thing, and that image of her like nursing Shinji. It all ties back to that. Also, she is very pale, like Rei, and Shinji is very tan, like Gendo. He's like, there won't be a repeat performance of the stunt I pulled earlier. And I've sort of received a warning. So, okay. So, Fuyu's telling Yui, he's like, it makes me think that Yui was on to what Fuyu was doing. He's like, I can't pull the same stunts I did earlier, and I've received a warning. This whole scene sounds like a scene between Kaji and Masato. So, I think Fuyu-chan liked her. I think he did. He just didn't act on it. Getting rid of me couldn't be easier for them, it seems. And she says the same goes for all the survivors. And so the scene that Shinji sees of her the last time when he sees her as a baby, the image of her under the tree in episode 16 or episode 18, I guess it was well, maybe it was episode 16. Yeah. Where he saw her, like, with the blurry face. She was under a tree just like that, holding him. So is this the same scene that he saw? This is just how Shinji's memory processes it? I think it is. It's simple. It's a simple thing to destroy people. Oh, that line. She just says it so nonchalantly. She says it so nonchalantly. It is simple to destroy people. It's a that way she says it is so nonchalant. Ooh. But that's no reason for you to become an experimental subject. She's like, I'll go along with the flow of things. So she was an experiment. Okay, so she was an experimental subject in all of this. And Fuyu didn't want her to be. Huh. I think he liked her. Yep. He didn't want her to be a test subject. And she's like, you're not going to die. She's like, that's why I'm at SEAL. For Shinji. And he slowly starts to turn back. Like, he slowly starts to turn back. So she's doing this all for Shinji. So she is going to be an experimental test subject and do this all so that Shinji can have a future and he won't die in 10 years during the third impact. She's like, I'll sacrifice myself to save the world for my child. And Fuyu, like, he doesn't look back for a long time. And then he looks back at her. And then it shows Shinji, like, patting her face. Oh my god, oh my god. And he just stares. Then it's 2004, which is the year that she dies. Okay. Underground Laboratory 2 at Hakeone. Okay. So this is before they moved. Interesting. This is before they moved to Tokyo 3. But their lab, didn't we just say in 2005 that Ritsuko and them were at Hakone? Or no, 2003, that's where they just were under the tree. So at the lab. And then they're, okay. So the shirt. So Shinji, this is Shinji with the outfit on, with the polo. In the flashback, he's got the shirt and it's pulled off to the side. Is this the same shirt? Or was that shirt striped? I didn't want to say that shirt was striped, but it's around the same time. Oh. So he's there watching LCL electrified, pressure at plus 0.2. And he smiles up at Dr. Akagi, and she's like, what the heck? So they had the LCL electrified. So at this point in 2004, okay, they had the LCL fluid from somewhere. I'm assuming from the atom from the sample of atom that maybe they took from the impact. How they get the LCL fluid. And then there's him, and he's got the glasses. And he's in the pose. He's in the pose. No Destrudo readings detected in transmissions. And there's Shinji watching. She's like, what is this child doing here? Parabase is stable. He's Dr. Ikari's son. And he's looking out. And we can't see what's there. And then Fuyu's like, Ikari, this is not a nursery school. Today is a crucial day. And Fuyu knows who that kid is. He knows that that's their son. He didn't want him there. And then, I'm sorry, Professor Futsuki. I'm the one who brought him. And it was Yui talking. And he's like, Yui, this is your experiment today. Oh, and she's like, that's why. She was doing this all for him. And Gendo sitting there with that pose. Oh. Oof, 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 oof. And him waving, I want to show my child the bright future. And those are what they say they are. They're the last words that she ever spoke. Damn. And him just looking so happy at his mom. And Kaji saying, those were Miss Yui's final words. She says Miss Yui's. She does not say, I guess, Yui-san. Doesn't say Ikari. They were final words. The irregular circumstances erased her from this world. Okay. And there's a picture of them. I want to get that picture of them, the three of them together. Oh, come on. Let me get that. But yeah, so, and even then Gendo has the creepy scientist look, but he looks mildly happy there compared to them. But yeah, but it's the three of them, not Dr. Akagi. Exactly as I had wished. Because if you notice, in that picture of the three of them, Dr. Akagi's not there. It's Yui, Gendo, and Fuyu-chan. Threes. Rule of three. Dr. Akagi was the fourth wheel. And she wanted to be there instead. Oh, she was a jealous woman. Yep, I'm such a horrible woman. Yeah, that's what we said. Like Akagi talks about the part of her mother she hated the most was the woman. And it's like, yeah, because she was a jealous woman. She wanted Gendo to herself, and Gendo loved Yui instead. And so she pushed Yui into this experiment. I'm sure, and didn't try to stop her. But the question is, did she sabotage the experiment? The question is, did Dr. Akagi sabotage the experiment? That's the question. Did she sabotage it so she would die? And we don't know that, right? We don't know that yet. But we see the flowers. Ri-chan, Dr. Ikari changed after that day. That was it. That was the loss of his humanity, the loss of his wife. So yeah, so Yui dies. Yui dies, and Gendo changes. And see, in all of the moments leading up to this episode, to this part of the episode, Gendo was never really with Shinji, right? It was Yui with Shinji talking to Fuyu-chan. When Gendo was with Fuyu at Antarctica, he's like, oh, my wife could come, but she was with our child, so sorry. And then back when she was talking to Fuyu, she's like, well, if I have a child, then it'll be fine. I won't need, if I have a child, it'll be okay, but it has to be with somebody nice. And so we get this idea that she had a kid, and maybe that's what Yui became kind of like obsessed with her kid and wanted to just have the best for him. And then Gendo maybe Gendo didn't have a part parenting from the start. Maybe Gendo wasn't really into being a father and just let Yui do everything. But once Yui was gone, that was like the last layer of humanity in him was just gone. And so you have this man who was kind of a delinquent, who was sweet, supposedly according to Yui, but only when he was with her, and was not much of a father figure. And then once you take away that one aspect that kept his humanity, then he was just a terrible father that wanted nothing to do with his kid, and he just shoved him off. So now it said he taught him to him as sensei, but that wasn't Fuyu-chan, right? So we still don't know who took care of Shinji. We still don't know who that was. But he changed after that day. And you can tell instantly, the moment after we see Yui's grave, we cut to the office that's being built for NERV, and you see the distance between them exponentially wider. You have Gendo at his desk, Fuyu way over here, and there's a caution sign in between them, and they're like, where have you been for the past week? That the moment Yui died, Gendo went to how he was now. It was just that humanity's over, and that distance became apparent. He says, you're allowed to grieve, but you need to be aware that you're responsible for more than yourself now. He's like, you were gone for a week. So, okay. So Gendo was absent a week after Yui died. And so, yeah, Fuyu's like, you have a kid. You just left this kid abandoned for a week. Hello? He's like, I know. Fuyutsuki, I'm going to recommend a new project starting today. Like, he spent a week in mourning, and then was like, okay. And then the first time we see him after his wife's death, he's got the glasses and he's doing the pose. Surprising no one. Yeah, I've already proposed it to Chairman Keel. So Keel, he's already proposed it to him, and he's like, you're not going to. He's like, that's right. The path to godhood that none have ever succeeded in before. And God, this whole imagery, it's like you couldn't be more on the nose. So Gendo is talking about this path to godhood. To create a god to control the future so the third impact doesn't happen. But the Human Instrumentality Project. And that imagery there, I'm sorry, but could we be more on the nose? With the cross in the shadows. Okay. So we cut to 2008. Which is a year after the UN moved to Japan's HQ. All right. So the year's 2008. And Ritsuko is like, congratulations on the completion of the fundamental theory of the Magi. This is not exactly a gift to celebrate it with, but my formal mission to Gerhiren has been unofficially approved. So, at this point, in 2008, Akagi joins what will become NERV, and the Magi is finished. This is almost 8 years ago. Just about 7 years ago. Almost 8. So the Magi is finished right as Akagi officially joins NERV, which is still called Gerhiren at the time. And I'll be starting working on Project E within the next month. And so she's trying to find her way around, and the place is still kind of creepy. Like, it's just, she's like, who's there? And like, everything is still creepy and doesn't look right. And they're like, I'm in the tech development department. Like, it's not, she's like, I heard the command center has been completed, but so I came to see it, but this place is a maze. All right, so she's 23, Ritsuko Akagi, 23, Gerhiren Technology Department, Section 1, Project Planning, E-Planning Group. Okay, so in 2008, she was 23. So she's 30 now. So Ritsuko is almost 30. I'm assuming Masato is almost as well. So that means that around the time, 8 years prior, they were... Okay, so around the time... Oh! So that would mean that Masato was 14 or 15 around this time. Yeah, she was. Yeah, Masato would have been nearly 14 or 15, the same age as Shinji, around the time of the second impact. Was Masato going to be the donor? Was Masato going to be the pilot that was going to be injected into Adam? We don't know. But she's been around the right age. Why was she up at the South? Why was she at the South Pole with her dad at a top secret military base with an angel that might need a 14-year-old donated to it? And then it blew up before that donation could happen. I'm just saying. It's a bit coincidental. Okay. And so the second level, we get all that. Director and Dr. Akagi are there. And so we could do... I like that they animate her, that she's 23. She doesn't look like a child, but she doesn't look like the Akagi that we see now, right? She seems older, right? Which is interesting. I like it. So yeah, so we cut to the Magi, and it's just like, it's all greens and very, very sci-fi tech, very futuristic. Like, I have no regrets concerning my work. So what'd they say here? I'm gonna go back to that. They cut to, are you really sure? Yes, I have no regrets concerning my work. Liar, you just can't forget about Miss Yui, right? Oh, so she basically says that Gendo can't forget Yui. While Gendo says he has no regrets with his work. So we don't get the rest of that conversation. I want to know. And so it's like in the dark. Okay. She says, but I don't mind. And she goes to kiss him, and he perks up at that. But here's the thing. He does like the shoulder grab to like steady himself on her when she kisses him, right? What? And then there's the little 5 on there. I don't know if that has any bearing. Top 10 anime betrayals of all time. But yeah, and then Ritsuko saw it. And it's funny because where they're standing, is that where Melchoir is? They're sitting, they're positioned in the place where the three magi are. So you have Balthazar, you have Melchior, and you have Casper. Didn't we establish that Melchior was the one that was the woman? And she's standing in the place where Melchior is going to be, which is the woman, which is what the computer is that ends up defeating the angel in episode 13. I find that interesting. I could be wrong, but that'd be cool if it was a coincidence. And then, yeah, so Akagi. So Ritsuko knew that Gendo and Akagi's mom maybe had a thing. But now, she doesn't know the full scope of it, if it was reciprocated by Gendo, if it was just her mom or not. She doesn't know, but she's known this whole time. So last episode, I was like, man, I hope Ritsuko isn't having an affair with Gendo. I was kind of right. It's just her mom, not her. And so then we go to 2010. So, okay. So 5 years ago. So we cut to 2010. Things are getting interesting. 5 years ago. Geofront artificial canopy. Lower 2, the future location. And that's when Gendo shows up with Rei. With baby Rei. Okay. So, Gendo shows up with Rei. 2 years later. All right. That's headquarters for Garen. Okay, so then they see them. And they're like, oh, did you bring your child today? And she's like, oh, but you have a son, if I'm not mistaken. I like how Dr. Akagi says, oh, but you have a son, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like, bitch, you know. It's like, you know he has a son. You were there when Shinji was there during Yui's death. You know he has a son. Oh, but you have a son, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like, you're so full of shit. And then he says, this isn't Shinji. Glad we clarified. Glad we clarified. I'm taking care of a friend's daughter. Okay. This man, it's like, Rei needs an adult, and Gendo is not the person. Her name is Rei Ayanami. But she looks exactly like Yui, only with the blue hair and red eyes. The fudge. He's like, oh, hello, Rei. I noticed that Kagi Ritsuko does not have makeup on. She doesn't have the lipstick like the mom does. The mom has the purple lipstick. She doesn't have any. She says, this girl reminds me of someone. Like when she stares at her. Okay. And then we see the picture of Shinji's mom looking at Rei. And he's like, Miss Yui. Yeah, so that's kind of freaky. That Rei does look a lot like Yui. Kind of freaky. A little bit. Just a wee bit. Just a wee bit. And so all the files concerning Rei Ayanami have been erased already. It's blank. What does this mean? And then the Magi system is completed. Okay, so the Magi is finished in between roughly 2 years. And so we find out Gendo shows up with Rei. There's no data on her. Fun times. And so the Magi, Casper, Magi, Balthazar, and Magi, Melchior. I want to see, okay. Maybe Balthazar was in the middle. The 3 parts, the scientist, the mother, and the woman in me. And those 3 elements will be in constant conflict with one another. The only thing left is to power it up, right? She's like, yep. And so then we do see that Akagi Ritsuko has the lipstick on now. She has it on there. And it's red. I'm going home today. And she's like, oh. She's like, that's right. I didn't know she was a member of Gerhirn, that Masato was. And she's in Germany. So yeah, so Masato, we find out that Masato has been in Germany with Kaji, I'm assuming. And that's probably how she would have known Asuka. Right? Because Asuka was from Germany. It could very well have been that Asuka was taken to Germany around the same time Masato went over there. So, Because she was born in Japan, so that's interesting. She's serving in Branch 3. Yep. Branch 3, baby! It's supposed to, I suppose it's a long-distance relationship. And she's like, oh, I heard they broke up. She's like, oh, they look so good together, too. Yeah, no joke! No joke, Kaji and Masato look good together, but they broke up. And Ritsuko says, you can never tell with a man and a woman because it's not logical. So, the fact that Ritsuko saw her mother, like, being with Gendo, like, it kind of, I'm sure, messed with her a lot. And so then her seeing Masato and Kaji, like, Ritsuko just doesn't want to understand the relationships between men and women. She's like, no, it's too complicated. There's too much with it. And she's like, that cool attitude of yours has not changed. You're going to let your own happiness slip away. Yeah, because Ritsuko's mom is surprisingly a lot less scientific than I imagined. She's a lot more fleshed out than I imagined. I thought she was going to be just rigid like Ritsuko, but But Ritsuko's kind of like, I don't like the woman side of you, and she's like, I can't comprehend the mother side of you, and I don't like the woman side of you, so scientist it is, right? She's like, happiness is even harder to define. And she's like, well, it's been a long time since I've gone drinking. And so then she leaves. So yeah, so Ritsuko's just like, I can't really define being happy. She's like, it's not, my happiness is not easy to define. Don't know how exactly to phrase it. It's like, So then, she ends up leaving. And then notices somebody's there. And there's Ray being the creepiest child in the world. The fudge. It was like something out of a horror movie. This was out of a horror movie. And she's just standing there. And she's like, oh, did you want something, Ray? I got lost. Do you want to leave here with me? That's okay. She's like, but you won't be able to get home by yourself, right? It's none of your business, you old hag. This scene, what the fudge? Why? And she's like, oh, what? She says, I can go home by myself, so leave me alone, you old hag. And she says it expressly. She's like, it's not nice to call someone that. But you are an old hag, aren't you? And she's like, I'm going to get mad. You need to get a good scolding from Director Ikari. And she says, that's what the director calls you. And she just gets this like little evil look in her eye. I'm like, what the hell, Ray? Ray has shown no emotion or semblance of being mean this entire series. Like, she's been indifferent and she's been blunt and like emotionless, but not like this. Not like this. No. She says, that's what the director calls you. And she's like, that. He says that old hag is pushy and he doesn't need that old hag anymore. And just confirms him saying that she doesn't need him anymore. And this like red, like her eyes are so red, he doesn't need that old hag anymore. And then she looks, says, that's what the director calls you. And sees Yui in her place. So the question is, why did Ray say this to her? Why did Ray say this to Dr. Akagi? If Yui said it to her before in the past, why did Yui say it to her? Because Yui doesn't seem like that type of person. But they say that's what the director calls you, as old hag. And she seems to have like a complex where she wants Gendo to like her. So that's the opposite of what she wants Gendo to think of her. So, and then, oh my God, that shot. That shot of when she kisses Gendo. It's just, she's like Asuka, right? She's kind of like Asuka in that moment where she kisses Shinji and Shinji doesn't react. Shinji's just like, but in that moment you see Gendo, her kissing Gendo, and Gendo's eyes are open and he's just staring blankly ahead like he's just not even into it. He's just letting her do what she wants to just make her happy so she'll finish the Magi. Oh, for the record, that like soulless kiss between her and Gendo, it's the least romantic thing in the world. We had like a sex scene in the last episode. In this one, we get Gendo just soullessly, not even she's all into it and he's like not even a part of it at all. Oh my god. And then it cuts to her strangling Ray. Strangling her. What the fudge? She's like, you're nothing. She says, doesn't matter if you die, you can always be replaced, Ray. The same as me. Oh. And so she's like choking Ray and realizing that she is just as expendable. She's like, you could be replaced and so can I. Like, we're not fixtures here. And that's the thing. She's like, I'm not a fixture in Gendo's life. Yui was a fixture and she's gone. She's like, I'm not. I can be replaced. Gendo doesn't care about her. So the question is, though, I wanted to, like, it shows Ray's arms are just like stiff. Like, it's just, like Ray's arms are just stiff. Like she's dead. And then she's sweating like she killed her. So did, it's 2010. So did Akagi kill Ray? Is the reason that the Evas, Ritsuko believes that the Evas are after her. She believes that when the Evas attack NERV that they're trying to get to Ritsuko. And Ritsuko's like, it's because of my mother. So does Ritsuko think that has Ritsuko determined that Dr. Akagi was one of the reasons that Yui died? Is she aware that Dr. Akagi had a hand in it and that maybe the Eva, if it has Yui inside, would be jealous or mad at Akagi and her mom because of them being with Gendo? Like, if Ray is connected to Yui and the Eva, the fact that it looks like she killed Ray. So, what? Because her arms are just there. And she looks terrified. And then there's a gunshot. But, what? So it says the Human Instrumentality Project Committee, chaired by Keel Lorenz. Okay. Keel Lorenz dissolved the research organization Gerhirn the next day. So the day after Ray supposedly died, Gerhirn was dissolved and NERV took over. Okay, so there's the things at the top, the doors there. They form the special duty organization NERV. And we see all of us were moved directly into NERV. Okay, and right, oh my god. Right at Middle Choir. There's the blood. With the exception of one, Dr. Akagi, the remarkable creator of the Magi system. Oh my god. So, but it looks like, because was she at the top? Was she at, I want to go back real quick for a second here, because it's like, it looks like she hit the side. It looks like she fell off the top tower and hit the side of, either she hit the side of the computer and slid down to her death there, or her head exploded. What? But it's funny because where she died was where she was having the affair with Gendo. It's at the same middle spot that she was having the affair with Gendo that she died, in that same area. And if it's with Melchoir, which was the woman computer, it would make sense because that oh my gosh. But I want to go back and see where she was at. Okay, where was she at? Okay. Where were they standing at? They were overlooking the three computers. Yeah, they were overlooking them at the top. That's where she was sitting. And that's where she saw her. But we don't see her fall off. That's the thing. We don't see her fall off. Huh. Okay. All of us are directly moved into NERV. And then, yeah, she fell off of there. Oh my god. And we don't know what became of Ray. What the fudge? But I don't think Ray died then, so... Oh! I don't like that! What? No! I don't want to think of Ray as a little murderer. Okay. We'll just file that away for now. And then we cut back to... the present. Okay. He's like, I guess I'll go. And he goes in there to get Fuyu-chan out. From Seal. He's like, oh, it's you. Long time no see. I put the guards outside to sleep for a while. He's like, this will cost you your life. He's like, I just want to get closer to the truth. Oh. Oh, there's a little moment there. There's a moment there I want to get on. I wanted to get it. It's so tiny. But he's like smiling at Fuyu. And he looks so sincere. He looks like a Studio Ghibli character. Did they direct this episode? He's like, within myself. And there's 3 bands across the handcuffs. You know, 3 red bands. It's fun. But he's like, I want to get close to the truth within myself. So yeah, what is the truth within yourself, Kaji? What is this? Okay. Besides, it looks like they'll find out that I diverted the sample of Adam to Commander Ikari. So I have to guard my own interests too. So he gave the sample to Gendo. And so he's like, they found that out, so I'm pretty much a dead man walking anyway. Okay. Fuyu, various bad things will happen. And then they let Masato... So they let Masato out and give her her gun and stuff back because they find out she's not connected to him. He kept her out of it. Damn. He kept her out of it. And I bet he left her the message too. Just as insurance. So yeah, so he basically established that he gave the sample to Gendo for Adam. And that they didn't know about it. Okay. And like, thanks for your cooperation. And she's like, is it over? And they're like, yes, the problem has been resolved. So. Okay. What about him? I don't know. Masato. This shot of him in front of the big fan, though, with the sun setting. Oh, God, and that look on his face, Kaji. Hey, you're late. Oh. So the question is, did she kill him? Did Masato kill him? Because he waited on her. Because he was waiting there. Was he waiting for her? Did she kill him? And then she got back and saw the voicemail. I don't feel like she would shoot him, but I don't know. I was like, did she go and shoot him herself? Did someone else? He said it's you. It's like he was waiting on him. Who shot him? Who shot Kaji? It's like damn Dallas. Like who shot him? It's like who shot Kaji? So that's the question, right? We don't know for sure. It could have been Masato, but I'm like, I don't think Masato would have shot him, right? I don't think she would have shot him because they were both after the truth, right? So who shot Kaji? I don't think it was Fuyu because he was waiting on someone there at the end. He was waiting on somebody at the fan. So I'm like, I don't think that Fuyu shot him. I don't think he'd react that warmly to Gendo, though, but what the fudge? And then there's the moths in front of the light, just like the light that was playing when he carried her after the after party, right? And she goes back to the apartments. And there's 3 red lights there, 3 floors. And she says, I'm home. And he's still playing track 26. Same thing. And you can't hear, and she's just... And both Shinji and Masato are both, like, just I like that she's just like sitting there almost like she's praying, and he has his like head against his knee, kind of the same way. They're both just so solemn. We don't know where Asuka is. If Asuka finds out Kaji's dead, that won't be good. Because Kaji like hung the moon to Asuka, so we haven't seen her at all this episode, so. But then she notices the answering machine. And she knows exactly what it is. And Shinji, I like he's just sitting there listening. And her hand's shaking as she goes to like press the button. That's such a good detail. That's such like a good little note. That's such a good little thing to point out. And her pressing play. He's like, Katsuragi, it's me. I probably put you through a lot of trouble by the time you were listening to this. So did she shoot him or not? I don't think she shot him, but I don't know. There's part of me that thinks she did, that she did, and there's part of me that thinks she didn't. I'm sorry. Tell Ri-chan I'm sorry too. Because I've troubled you so much anyway. There's this flower I've been growing. Make me happy if you'd water it for me. I don't think she shot him, but I'm like, why did he look so soft then? What the fudge? Shinji knows where it is. Katsuragi, the truth is with you. Go forward without any hesitation. So I'm wondering if that pill he gave her had the truth written down in it, if that was in there. And so he's like, you can go forward without hesitation. So what the fudge? What's the truth? So she knows now. If I ever get to see you again, I'll say the words I wasn't able to say 8 years ago. Bye. At 12:02 p.m. So I'm sure he was going to tell her he loved her. Obviously. He could have just said, I love you, but that's not Kaji's style, right? It's not his style. And then, of course, she starts crying on the table. Jerk. You're really such a jerk. Ugh. I don't think she shot him, but I think, yeah, she knows he's dead. And then Shinji, the thing of it is that Shinji leans in and he sees her crying. And he doesn't know what to do. Right then, all I could do was run away from Masato. There was nothing I could do or say. I was a child. It made me realize that. Because, yeah, in that moment, he's like, what do I say to her? He's like, I don't know what to say or do. He's like, I'm like a child. Like an adult would know what to say or do, but a child wouldn't. He's like, I can't help her. And that's the difference between us and them. And it's funny, it's a callback to like Asuka like calling out for her mom and everything. And he's like, you're still such a child. Now he's like aware of it himself too. And it's just a callback to that. What an episode. So is Kaji dead? I guess Kaji's dead. I'm gonna be really sad if he's dead, but I want to know what happened. I want to know what happened to him. Like, who killed Kaji? Who killed Kaji? Did he find out the truth? What did Fuyu show him? Did Fuyu show him anything? Did Fuyu tell him anything? What was in the pill they gave Masato? Find out what happens next time in Dragon Ball Z. What's happening? Like, there's just, okay. So we got a lot. We got a lot in this episode. There's still questions as to what the Chamber of Guff is, which I'm sure we'll get things on. How he based around Antarctica. We find out that there's like a prototype for NERV was in Antarctica. Was Masato meant to be the donor of the original atom? Was that meant to happen and the second impact happened? How long has Yui and Gendo been involved in this whole project? How did they stumble upon Atom in the first place? How did the second impact happen in the first place? We still don't know the exact details. We're getting closer. We're getting more and more breadcrumbs piecing together to put it all into perspective, but we don't have the full picture yet. We're just getting puzzle pieces scattered on the board, but we haven't totally aligned them. But we know, like, Fuyu's been involved in this since the start. And, like, Fuyu has always disliked Gendo, but he's always stayed close to him because of Yui. So what's the deal with that? Who killed Kaji? What did he find out? Did Rei actually die, or did she kill Akagi's mom? What the fudge? How did the O1 unit come to be? The O2 unit? If we had the OO unit was originally made from Adam, it was the first Eva. There's so many questions, and we have 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 5 episodes left. 5. And then end of Evangelion. And then the 3 rebuilds and Thrice Upon a Time. And we got lots of movies. I'm still debating on whether I should watch Death and Rebirth. I don't know. There's some people in the Discord that said that Death and Rebirth is a nice way of recontextualizing everything. So I haven't decided if I'm going to watch it before End of Evangelion or not. Maybe, because there's some extra footage in it. I'm like, oh, there's like 2 seconds of bonus material you've not seen before. Maybe, we'll see. But yeah, I'm just like, what the fudge? What the fudge in all this, you know, like you do. I'm really curious to know your thoughts down below, because this episode was really, really good. Still questions. I want to know. We're getting more pieced together. Please, no spoilers, no hints, no clues. Don't confirm or deconfirm my theories. Don't be like, oh, go back and look at this part. Don't. Let me rewatch the rest of this series and see if I'll figure it out. Because there's parts that are now all connecting that I was like, oh, that all makes sense now. So it's all coming together slowly but surely. But I didn't feel like this was the big WTF moment. I told everybody in the Discord. My brother told me I'd text him WTF at some point. I feel like it's coming closer, but this episode wasn't it. This episode was a W, and now we're just waiting. I'm waiting for the TF. So I've talked for 2 hours, surprising no one. So yeah, I'm real curious to know your thoughts down below. But yeah, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Neon Genesis Evangelion. Bye.